What's
Hello.
up?
Hey.
So I think that before we start, I have a lot of different directions I think this could be taken in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what I did do was I assembled four Slippy files from when I felt like I was playing kind of bad against people that I think my main issue is that I have a very big discrepancy between how good my my A game is and like my C game is. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so when it comes to tournament and I'm nervous or something and I'm playing my C game because no one ever plays that great in tournament, I feel definitely dragged down by that. I think that right now I'm putting in a lot of effort into melee, but I still have so many questions and I'm very like interested in how the game works as a whole. And so yeah.
Okay. So, okay. So, how do you want to start? Seems like you have it pretty laid out, so I'm down to
Yeah,
just
I
go with
think I
whatever.
think I think we should just look over some VODs. I have a few different matchups. I have a Peach, I have a Fox, I have a Sheik, and I have a Falco.
Okay.
Um, I said this in chat. I don't know if you saw it, but basically, I have like some specific questions relating to like what do I do in X scenario, like how do I, etc. But I also have a lot of very like philosophical questions about improvement that I
Mm-hmm.
think that I'm interested in the answer to. I
Okay.
think probably what's going to happen is you're going to look at my gameplay, notice systemic flaws in my game plan and how I operate as like a Fox player, and then from there, I guess we could transition towards the end of the lesson with my more general questions.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right, so I'm gonna pick this VOD. I'm sending it to you right now. I think in every single one of these VODs, I feel like I played really bad, and I
Okay.
think that analyzing these VODs can help me improve my C game.
Okay, really quick before we get into that, can you do a quick introduction for those who don't know you in the stream, like how long
Oh
you've been
yeah,
playing and your general relationship with the game and stuff like that?
yeah. So I am Tomz. A lot of people know me like that I'm friends with as Tommy. I'm from Chicago. I've been playing the game since like the summer of 2018, but I did not put any effort into it other than like playing friendlies at all until this summer when Slippy came out. So I basically have been playing competitively since this summer. I really am very motivated to get very good, and I've been practicing a lot, especially solo practice. Um, and so I play Fox, and I am just very interested in like the improvement process, sort of battling against myself, you know, working to improve flaws that I have as a melee player, and I think it's a very fun little journey that I'm on.
Yeah, cool. Sounds good. All right.
So,
Let's.
should I like open up your stream or should
No,
I?
I'm gonna Discord stream screen share to you so it has less delay.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
And okay, so I'm really glad that Discord added this.
Yeah.
Okay, so oops.
Yeah, basically just what I would say is that uh I definitely think my game revolves around how well I'm operating punish wise. I think my neutral is very simple, and when I'm playing good, it's just when my punish is like really working out and I'm not dropping things.
Sorry, say that again. I was having some issues with Dolphin.
Yeah, no problem. I think I have a very simple neutral game. I think I default to very similar options in a lot of situations, and I think what delineates me playing well versus me playing bad is definitely like how my punish game is operating.
Okay. All right. All right. Yeah. So I'm just gonna sort of go through this and do my best to understand what's going on. But if you have any
Yeah.
thoughts while we're going through, then just
Yeah.
let me know. I see you're playing Ober. It looked like the guy from
Yeah. Oh,
Florida.
can you reactivate the Discord stream?
Oh, say that again.
The Discord stream stopped. Can you do
Oh,
it?
oh, because I exited out of Dolphin. My bad. There we go.
It's working again. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Oh, and now it's not working on my. One sec. Now it's not working on my actual stream. Okay, okay. I'm just gonna. It's an annoying technical issue.
Yeah. No worries.
Over. Okay, so now it's up on my normal stream, and now I'll reshare it on Discord.
One thing as a player that I think Ober is very good at is I think that he's very good at like demolishing worst players. Based on like I feel like he breaks the game down to very simple stuff where he knows he's going to outplay, and I think that is why I wanted to review him specifically.
Okay, yeah. I don't know why I'm having all these weird issues with everything. Okay, so I just switched to screen share. I'll just do it on a screen basis. Okay, shouldn't have any issues now.
Mess up SDI a little bit.
Yeah, DI is like not really a thing most people need to focus on. Like DI is really useful, but it's sort of like something that's totally isolated and you can just learn separately from like the rest of the game. I hate FD. It's just like free combos for everybody.
Yeah, I think we should ban it, but I'm also a mid-level player, so
we should definitely ban it though. I agree. Yeah, I'm a little confused by your neutral so far, but I'll keep watching.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I think that he plays like just to break it down into things that he knows he's gonna win. So like, he doesn't give me much for free, and I think I get a lot off stuff for free at this level.
Even though I said DI is not a huge deal, on FD you should basically just DI up and in on the shine every time.
Okay.
Like don't DI away. Like they just get the easy combos out of it. It's just like a way to like generally improve stuff against.
All right.
What they're doing. Huh. Yeah, okay, so just from that match, it looks like in neutral, like you mentioned your neutral is fairly, like, simple already.
Yeah.
But it looks like you're not really thinking about what situations you're trying to win. Like, it looks like you're sort of being like, okay, if this hits, I know what I'm doing next. And it's interesting. I think you saw the lesson yesterday, and that guy had like the exact opposite problem, where like he would always be able to hit, like he would play very patiently in neutral, but he didn't really know what he was supposed to be getting out of it.
Yeah.
And so it looks like you're looking for good openings, but you're not looking for the opening to. You're not looking for your opener to counter something in particular.
Okay.
So like you said that he's only going for situations where he knows that he's in like a good spot, right?
Yeah.
But like if you know what his options are, like let's say he does 4 options, like 4 different types of things.
Yeah.
What you want to do is so by watching this I can tell you know which moves you want. Like you want the grabs, you want the drills. So that's not your issue. Your issue is so once because you mentioned he has a very simple style, if you can break down what he's doing into those few options, like if you know those options, you need to figure out which options you can do that beat those options specifically.
Yeah.
Then when you're playing neutral, there's sort of 2 different phases in neutral, and they can take different amounts of time, but basically one of them is when you're trying to bait your opponent to do something reactable.
Okay.
Like you're maybe dash dancing and you're hoping that he does like a bad aerial that you can punish. And if he does a bad aerial, then you can punish with a drill or a grab or whatever. And then the other half is sort of like going for something that you think might hit. But I saw you going for like certain short hop up airs and stuff.
Yeah,
and
he
like
pointed that out to me.
I can I can feel that there's not any thought behind those up airs outside of like it'd be nice if this up air hit. You're not doing the up air to counter something that he's doing. So like an example would be like, let's say you do a quick dash dance and he's facing with his back to you, and you think he might do an up tilt or an auto cancel back air.
Yeah.
Then you might do like a full hop falling up air because you're sort of reading that he's gonna do one of those two options. And then if he doesn't go for that and he instead tries to dare at you or something, you're still pretty safe. And so it's kind of like breaking down what your opponent does into options and then figuring out which options can beat those options, and then figuring out like how to try to read those options and to do the right thing.
Yeah. I think that I definitely get what you mean. I pretty much think of matchups in terms of moves rather than situations at this point. Like, I think that, as you said, like, oh, you know, against certain characters, I'm just like fishing for the drill or whatever, or the grab, etc. But like, I'm not really thinking about, you know, like it's like I'm not really looking at the screen of their options and playing the counterplay to them. I'm just sort of like, I hope my shit works, and then like, if it doesn't, it doesn't.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and so that's definitely an issue to think about.
Okay. I think
because it's like, but like I don't know, like playing for moves rather than situations, it would be kind of like if there's like a chess equivalent or something of like every time they give you a piece, you try to take the piece. Like you're just like focusing in on trying to get a pawn, and you might move your pieces in the wrong way, and then lose because of that. And so it's like a Falco doing a down air where it's an approaching down air versus a Falco doing a down air that's like a fade back down air where he jumps in and then he fades back with the down air. You got to start thinking of those as two separate moves because they have a completely different effect on the game. So it's okay to think of things as like move based as long as you think of them different situations with a move as different moves.
Yeah. Okay. So in friendlies, like to implement something like this, I guess, is it just really just like looking at the screen more and just trying to like make sure you're not autopiloting? Because like I feel like you went into this tangent a little bit yesterday about how autopiloting is not necessarily bad, but I feel for me it becomes like very, very easy to just like not look at the screen and just like try to move around my character and not like try to respond to what they're doing.
Well, the thing is that I don't want people to look at autopilot as a bad thing. Autopilot is a necessary thing that always happens. Like it happens to every player on Earth. 99% of things are going to be autopilot. Yeah. What the thing is that you want to be able to consciously work on the one or two things you're focusing on top of your autopilot. So like 90% of your game will be your autopilot. So that you can totally focus your consciousness on the parts of the game you're trying to improve on.
All right, that makes sense. I think, do you think that this is just something that gets solved by just like trying to play more friendlies and practicing, or do you think that theory crafting like specific scenarios and trying to like shadow box, I guess, would be better?
What I would say is there's several different ways you can go about it, obviously, but the most common way is that when you get hit by something, and like let's say you die from it, and you're on like the angel platform or whatever, okay, so there's different levels of it. Like let's say you're playing and you get hit by something. Let's say you try to shield grab something that's not a good shield grab. And then you die for it. What you can tell yourself is, okay, next time he does that situation, I'm going to do X instead. Yeah. And then all of your conscious energy can go towards, if you see that situation, do this instead. Yeah. Then you can sort of like zoom out a little further outside of like a single match, and you can say like after a session, either watching the VODs or just remembering it, you can look back and you can be like, okay, I'm pretty sure that I was getting hit by this situation a lot.
Yeah.
And then you can put a few minutes of time into thinking, okay, like what would be the best option? Because like on the fly when you're sort of playing the game, it's very like quick, and it's not quick and dirty solutions, but I'd say like you don't have the ability to like think through a lot of options. It's more like, okay, instead of A, I'll try B. But then when you watch the matches or you think about the session afterwards, you go, man, he just kept hitting me with this thing, and like, what should I do there? And then it's good to sort of theory craft and just think about, okay, maybe this could work, maybe this could work. I think it's like a good number is like 3. Like, think of 3 things that you want to do in that situation. Then the next time you play, you try those 3 things out at different points by focusing on those.
Yeah, I definitely think that I actually don't think I'm that bad at understanding what my opponent is doing, believe it or not. Like, I feel like I can look at someone who's playing me, and if I'm really paying attention, like actually thinking about the game super hard, I can be like, oh yeah, like when I do this thing, they tend to do that. Like, I can understand how they'll react to my pressure or whatever. But the thing that is important for me to work on, I guess, is just thinking about like the if this then that part, I guess, where it's like I can get mad about how the Marth will like keep dash backing every time, but like I need to frame it from the perspective of like the answer rather than the problem, I guess. Okay.
Well, because the thing is like you're not. It's like if you slow the game down and it was going at like 1/30th of the speed, you would be able to perceive every little thing about it.
Yeah.
And that's just like the problem is that the game goes so fast that in between interactions there's not a lot of space for like enough thoughts to happen.
Yeah.
And so you kind of have to use your time outside of game to like build up those thoughts ahead of time and then try them out in the game, because in the game you don't have enough time or like mental space to like calculate everything.
Okay. I'm gonna send you another file. It's a different person.
Yeah, sounds good.
Too. It's Just Joe. He's number 2 in Chicago. Playing. I think he's a little bit rusty. We were playing on Pokemon. I was able to take a few games. Like it's. I really do feel like I can do some cool stuff. It's just that like it really varies, and I really would think my C game is like basically very, very bad compared to how good I can play. It's got kind of a point of frustration for me, honestly, like just the inconsistency. But
okay, so I don't think you're at a level yet where you need to start thinking about C game or any sort of A, B, C game at all.
Yeah, okay.
That's like a concept after you've already done a lot in like of tournaments and stuff like that. Like basically, okay, so the way skill kind of works is that like there's like a range of skill that you have, and like sometimes you play at the bottom, sometimes you play at the top, sometimes even you're playing friendlies with no pressure and you're playing at the bottom of your skill level, and sometimes you're in tournament and you randomly play amazing for like 5 minutes. And so like what your goal is to just raise that range. Like the range will go up together. If you improve your A game, your C game will improve.
Okay, that's what I figured. That makes sense.
And
I was
so,
actually about to. I was going to ask you about that actually. Like if there was a difference in it between improving like peak play versus improving your base play, but I thought there might be an interesting. Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
Because it's sort of like you
improvement right now. Like I basically, like the solo practice. I do a lot of punish solo practice, and that's like very, very helpful to like hitting cool stuff in the game. But I think that as I develop as a player, like I think I'm essentially trying to be carried by my punish game right now a little bit. And when I don't hit that, I just like really, really lose. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, okay, so like okay, so I usually tell people at a little bit of like a lower level to worry super hard about their punish game, but you're okay, let me think of the best way to describe it. Like, you always want to focus on your weakest aspect and think of it as like at a low level the punish game has like a big what's the word? It has kind of like a multiplier on it.
Yeah.
So getting a little bit better punish game helps a lot more, and so it's like more difficult for someone's weakness to be neutral game at lower level.
Yeah.
And most of the time it's going to be punish, but I think that just by looking at your match, I feel like your neutral, like just working on sort of understanding the basics of neutral game will help you out more right now. Like, I feel like that's still your weakest aspect. Because the fact that you're going for openings to get good, to try to get a good punish is like already like that's normally the problem when people are struggling with punish game at low level.
Yeah, okay.
But we can watch these other matches, and my opinion might change a little bit, so we'll see.
I think that like from the perspective of like playing bad, I definitely agree with everything that you've said completely so far. I'm interested to see how like your opinion might change if I showed you a VOD where I thought I was playing super well, but like I definitely agree with this.
Okay, yeah, I'll see when I watch this.
Yeah, I just had him flood right there.
It's like, yeah, you don't really want to down smash a neutral from across the stage. All right, sick lesson.
Yo, why do you keep SDing? Just stop doing that.
Yeah, just stop SDing. Problem solved. I should tell it to Koval.
I was listening to you and Cody talk about Koval a lot, and I was like, this is just such an interesting player. Like,
he's a very interesting player. Yes. Wait, so you're the blue one?
I am the blue one.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to double check.
Blue Fox, best Fox.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, that's good.
I think out of all of the games I'm going to show you, I think the one that I play the worst is definitely against Ober. Ober, like, just, like, I'm not going to say he counters me, but he just is, like, very good at beating me.
Okay. Well, the thing, Falco is very good at beating Fox when the Fox doesn't have a lot of accuracy. So
True.
That's more of, like, a character thing, I feel like. So, yeah, okay, so the same thing is sort of coming up to me in this game where it's not really about like neutral necessarily. It's intentionality.
Yeah.
It's that like, because it's not necessarily like, oh, you're getting baited or whatever. It's not really about that. It's more about like when you do a move, there needs to be purpose behind it. And I feel like I basically like there's no sense that like. So the way I describe it in a lot of situations, and it doesn't really apply here because it's more of like an aggressive thing, but what I tell people is that when you shield, you have to know which move you're shielding. If you don't know which move you're trying to shield, and you're just shielding because you feel generally threatened, then you're basically getting baited to shield. And
that I definitely have a lot of things where I default to a certain option just because I'm scared of like a general threat.
Right, so that's what I can feel really hard while watching you, is that you're kind of like, okay, this option, it just kind of feels like it might work here, so I'm going to go for it. But like I haven't seen you do a single thing yet where you're like, I think he's going to do this and I will counter with this. Like that hasn't happened once. It's all like, I'm going to put my move here, and like, my experience tells me it has a decent shot of working, and that is like part of the game, but that's not really like what you want to be thinking about right now.
Yeah.
So that's like the biggest thing is that like we can look at an isolated situation of it. So okay, yeah, those are fine shields. I'm just gonna look at some sort of decision you make. Okay, we'll ignore that dash attack. Yeah, that grab was just bad, but it wasn't really what I'm talking about. Yeah, okay, so like maybe like these nairs I guess are a little bit, because it's kind of like a corner nair, but still like okay, there are some good examples early on. I'm sure it'll come up again though before the match ends.
I dash attack under platforms into the corner like all the time.
I see. Okay, hey, let me go back a little bit. So yeah, okay, yeah, like right here. Oh, dolphin?
What?
Okay, we shall restart the dolphin. All right.
What's going on?
That's crazy.
Common call fizzy.
Yeah.
I think that short hop drill shine was kind of an example of that, honestly. Like, I just expected him to do something, and then he didn't do something, and I got grabbed for it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was looking for. You're kind of like, all right, I'm gonna dash back, and I'm gonna dash in drill, and then it sure would be nice if it worked out for me. And it's like, it sure would be fantastic. And so it's like, or like that, in like, I'm not saying that you look at that and you say, oh, that's great, but when you're playing and you hit that, your dopamine does not care whether you think that's a good idea. Your brain will go, oh, sick, nice up air. And it's like, no, bad up air. Because there was, the only reason you did the up air was like, well, he's in this spot, I'm going to put the up air there. And he just happened to like not move and do literally nothing and get hit by it.
Yeah.
So it's like, or that too, or you just dash back, dash in drill, and you're just like, let's go. Like, we're leaving it up to fate. Like,
yeah.
And so, like, those are situations where the thing is doing dash back, dash in, immediate drill. If you watch like a top Fox player and you might see them do that, it's not actually like a bad thing to do. But the problem is that it's supposed to be like a layer on top of your reaction gameplay.
Yeah.
Like, basically the way the game works is you're like, okay, I want to guarantee a win if possible. This is just like the most general way about the game. You're like, I want to guarantee winning this game if possible. So like, if let's say you're playing a matchup where your character wins really heavily, like it's like 80-20, like you're playing like a bottom tier. You're playing like a Kirby. You don't want to do mix-ups against a Kirby. Because, like, this is the first layer. You don't want to do a mix-up if your character can, like, let's say something even worse, like Marth Kirby. Yeah. Like, you don't want to ever, like, oh, I'm gonna go for, like, a dash attack against Kirby, because if Kirby happens to shield it or spot dodge it against Marth, he can punish you. And there's no reason to ever do that, because you can just react to whatever Kirby does and punish it.
Yeah, okay.
So the first layer is like 100% victories, where it's like, if my opponent does this, I can, if my opponent dashes up and up smashes, and I space correctly, then I can just dash in and grab him, and then I have a punish.
Yeah.
But, so then once you get that layer of like, alright, if my opponent whiffs, I punish. If my opponent does something that I can space around, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And then once you have the guaranteed stuff, then you start working into like, okay, he kind of does these 3 or 4 options, so what can I do that's fairly low risk for me but has really high reward, where it's not 100-0, but like, let's say if you hit them, you get a drill grab, and if they hit you, they just back air you and you go to the opposite side of the stage.
Like that scenario where you're talking about, like Falco up tilting and you like full jump up air, like
right, where it's like, all right, so if Falco wants to hit me out of this, he would have to literally like read my full hop perfectly, and if he does anything else, I'll either be safe or I'll get an opening if he throws something out.
Yeah.
And it's not quite that simple, because Falco does have a lot of options, but it's like, that's the general concept, is that like, you want to be doing things that like generally have good value against the things your opponent's doing. And
Yeah.
so, like, this layer you're doing of, like, dash back, dash, and shine, it might have, like, a good probability of working, but you only need to do that when you're not able to find guaranteed openings.
Okay.
So it's kind of like you're playing the mix-up game when you don't need to be playing the mix-up game, because it's like, and so like a big piece of neutral is that you're trying to use non-committal mix-ups, such as like dash dance movement or platform movement, to get your opponent to do something bad so that you can get a guaranteed win. Where like if you use a move, and you, like if you dash dance or you use a move or if you stand still, all of those are like, they still have like a risk to it, but like doing an attack is a lot more committal. So like you want to try to find openings without committing, and then if you can, like what happens at high level play is basically and also a big reason for the consistency of better players against worse players outside of better punish game is that, like, let's say Zane is playing someone in bracket, and you go, oh, like, this guy's got pretty good punish game, you gotta watch out. And it's like, no, because what Zane will do is he will dash dance non-committally, and he'll get guaranteed openings without ever having to commit. But, like, let's say against a really, really good player, let's say it's Zane against Leffen, then Zane will try to play non-committally. Or how about Hungrybox, you know? Where Hungrybox doesn't play committally against people who he doesn't have to. But then let's say he's playing against Zane, and he's like, okay, I tried to get you to whiff, I tried to play non-committally, and it's not working. And also the other guy is doing the same thing, and it's not working either. The only time you start doing these little risks and reads and stuff like that is when that's not working anymore.
Okay.
So once those aren't working anymore, then people start going, okay, I'm going to take a little risk. I'm going to move into your range and then out of your range and see what you're going to do and see if that'll get you to bait it. And then once people realize, okay, these little risks aren't doing enough, then they start taking bigger and bigger risks, ideally, to move the match forward. But that only happens when neither player has openings. So you need a basis where you're trying to find easy openings before you start going for gambles.
Okay. So it's essentially like, you know, I can have the standard punish game, like, oh, I get the grab, I'll chain grab Fox to 50, I'll up tilt him to like 80, and then I'll like kill him on FD or whatever, right?
Right.
But that is sort of like solving the punish game in like a certain scenario. But in neutral, you kind of have to do the same thing where you have to like understand the game's standard gameplay very well before you can start taking the risks and like the mix-ups that will not necessarily be a guaranteed opening, but will like net you a good reward.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make like is that a good summary? Sort of like, you know, you understand. I think you were saying this to the guy yesterday, where it was like you have to understand all of the standard punishes very well in order to like do the cool ones, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's like in neutral, you have to understand the very standard mix-ups and like safe, like non-committal options very well to do the risky ones.
Exactly. Because basically, like, let's say you could beat someone, and this is true actually, a lot of people, where you could beat someone by only full hop bearing.
Yeah.
Like, there's certain characters that just can't handle full hop bear. But then so you should just start off by only full hop bearing them. And then they'll find like a way that they can kind of get past the full hop bear by doing something. And that's when you go, okay, so now they can get past the full hop bear. What can I do to deal with that?
Yeah.
So it's like,
So I'm really the opposite of the guy yesterday.
That's what I was saying. Is like you're actually the opposite. It's pretty interesting how everyone has a different approach to the game, but it makes it fun.
Yeah. Obviously, this is like a very general sort of thing. Like, oh, like you need to have purpose with your moves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like that might be very hard. I think I asked this kind of earlier, but like I feel like that is like very hard to implement right away. Like, oh, just start thinking. Like, I guess how do I like approach implementing this? Because I feel like I definitely could see this being a serious point of improvement.
So I like to use an analogy of like working out, where
Yeah.
somebody's like, okay, so just be strong, and and no one hears that, and they're like, okay, cool, like teach me how to be strong today,
Yeah.
like it's like a process. And so anytime you think about like an abstract of like thinking while you play or something like that,
Yeah.
those are any of those big structures, or like baiting your opponent, or like having quote like good defense, all of these, or good edge guarding, all of these are actually abstracts of isolated situations that you add on one at a time. It's
so
like
it's
yeah.
like if you wanted to make your legs stronger, you would do like squats, a bunch of different exercises that all culminate in the leg being stronger, not like just like if someone's like, oh, just do leg exercises. It's really not leg exercises that get you strong. It's like, for an analogy, it's like the individual exercises themselves that all build up.
Yeah, it's each individual workout of like, okay, I'm gonna work really hard on like this part of my body or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, think of it as like someone saying like, I want charisma. It's like these big general ideas are actually like a sum of very tiny specific things. And it's like, okay, you could work on this, like you could work on talking to people in a certain way, you could work on your intonation, you could work on the way you stand, you can work on all these little tiny details that can sum up into charisma. But you can't like, and that's why it's like basically you have general goals and a specific process.
Okay.
So like your general goal is, okay, I will be better at X part of the game. And then what you do is you say, okay, like what is one thing that I can do to move in that direction? Okay. And you add that on. And the thing is that it feels overwhelming. And this is like something that's very difficult for people to get past, of like, it really feels like, okay, cool, I just add on one thing, and if I add on one thing a day, it'll only take me 1,000 years to get good at melee. Like, because there's seemingly so many options, right?
Yeah.
But it actually goes a lot quicker than people think. And it's kind of like a little difficult to describe exactly why, but when you learn a specific for something, you'll actually kind of pick up on things that are kind of related to it without really realizing it. It's kind of like if you're learning a language. Yeah. Like, it seems like, wow, there's like 1 billion words in this language, you know? But when you start learning more words, you start to sort of pick up on trends.
Yeah, like the overall syntax of the language.
Right, so it's like, there's certain things that have happened to me where I'll look at a situation and be like, okay, this is like super complex. I have to add on like 20 different things. And I'll work and I'll add on like 2. And then I'll just be playing the game, and all those other situations, my brain is like, oh, I get it, they're basically the same, and it just covers them for me. And so like that will happen, but you can never try to force it. Just add on one thing at a time and just be happy with like, hey, I did this wrong before, and now I'm doing it right. Oh, I did this wrong before, and now I'm doing it better. It doesn't even have to be perfect. As long as it's better, things will start to click, and you just have to have faith in the process.
Okay. It seems like to me then that shadow boxing would be like super broken for me specifically. Like, in terms of like actually trying to work on reacting and like reading certain scenarios. Right?
Give me 1 sec, sorry. So you're saying you feel like shadow boxing would help a lot? Yeah, well, okay, well, like, so yeah.
From what you're saying, it just sounds like if my problem is like not actually thinking about what I'm trying to get my opponent to do, then like imagining situations where I'm getting my opponent to do things is like good, right?
Yeah, okay, so the shadow boxing is like a weird thing. And so I think what you want to do is at different points in your career and different points in your mental state, there's going to be different training methods that yield better or worse results. Okay. And so I can never recommend just shadow boxing. What I would say is like, mess around a little bit with labbing, mess around a little bit with shadowboxing, mess around with trying stuff out in friendlies, against people that are around your level and against people that are way worse than you. And if one of those seems to kind of be really clicking, then you just spend more time on that until it sort of peters off with, like, the amount of growth it's giving you.
Okay.
Because, like, there have been times in my career where I will try to shadowbox, and I'm like, this is not helping. And then I'll go, like, a year, and I'm like, yeah, I don't shadowbox, it doesn't help me. And then I'll try shadowboxing in a matchup again, and suddenly it just, like, explodes, and I'm improving a ton just from trying a little bit of shadowboxing.
Yeah.
So it's definitely like there's a bunch of different methods, and it's best to sort of dabble in them. And if you start feeling like something really good coming out of it, then you start putting more time into that until you get diminishing returns, and then you diversify again and start messing with a bunch of different ways to sort of play with it. But the important thing above all is to keep what you're currently working on simple, because a lot of this game doesn't actually, and pretty much any skill, it doesn't actually happen when you realize it's happening. A lot of the game happens when you're asleep.
Yeah.
And
no,
so
I definitely like, that's definitely the case in like every other like, I noticed, like, I recently started skateboarding, and like
sick.
It feels like the day after I practice something a bunch is like when I'm better at it, not like immediately after.
Exactly. Like your brain needs time to process and like connect neurons here and there, and so it's more about like you put some time in and you do your best to like focus, and the more you focus, the more your brain has sort of like this structure that it's been thinking about. And then when you stop thinking about it and you go to sleep or you do other things, your brain will sort of process it in the background and give you a better understanding of like you'll sort of be able to feel it of like, oh wow, yeah, like I did some shadowboxing and then I slept and then I woke up and I played somebody and suddenly I was really improved. Like I should do that more.
Yeah.
I think most of my improvement at this game, and not really this game, but when I played Brawl, I feel like 90% of my improvement was when I was in class. Because I would sit in class and be like, kind of bored, you zone out, and in the back of my head I'm like, but how do you cover that side B? And then, you sort of like shadowbox like in your head, almost like without even really realizing it.
Yeah, I think Mango actually said something like that, where when he was like, starting to get good, he would mainly just like think about the game like all the time. And like he says that he also like used to play like Fox Falco from both sides like in his head at the same time, and just like really think about all that stuff. One thing I actually am very curious about is like I feel like when I try to shadowbox, it feels very I don't know, I don't want to say like misguided, without direction. Like it's very hard for me to tell how specific I should be making like my scenarios. Like I don't really know.
Right, so that's actually an indicator that it's not the time to be shadowboxing.
Okay.
when it's just basically every couple months try it, and then when your brain is in the zone for it, it'll make sense. Because like I said, for the longest time I didn't think it was good because it didn't work for me. And then I tried it again just randomly at some point, like a year or so ago, and it just was like, wow, this is fantastic. And then after a couple weeks, I was like, okay, I'm not really getting anything more out of it. Yeah. Because it's more like, basically like, you need to be able to see your opponent perfectly in your head from like playing a lot, and just be like, okay, like a player that's a great example of that for me is like Kalamazoo, because he has this sort of like really repetitive neutral. Yeah. But it's really hard to deal with. And so what helped a lot for me was, the thing with shadowboxing is you can do it in your head too. You don't necessarily need the game. Is that like, you just sort of imagine, okay, he does this, and then dash back, dash in, attack, or whatever, and it's kind of like, if that doesn't feel like it's really like getting you, like it doesn't feel like it's once again the workout analogy of like, if it doesn't feel like it's really like taxing, or it doesn't feel like it's really like, as Arnold would say, like shocking the muscle, That's a horrible accent, but he always says that, like, you have to shock your brain muscles. And if shadowboxing is like understimulating, then you need to go in a different direction.
Okay. Um,
Yeah. Sarah, forgive me for the worst Arnold impression you have ever heard. Feel free to unsubscribe. All right, yeah, continue. Yeah.
I think that one thing that is like a general fear of mine is like I would recently, like in August and September, I was solo practicing like 3 hours a day, and like I was really working on a lot of individual stuff. But now I'm more busy. I'm like taking up skateboarding. I'm in like classes and stuff, and so I had to cut it down, but it's to like 2 hours. But it makes me scared that like the things that I'm not practicing, I will just like get worse in. And like I hate that feeling. Like I want to have a routine, but I also like I don't have time to like practice, wave shine up smash, wave shine grab, like wave shine drill, wave shine nair, like wave shine down tilt all like together. I have to like pick some.
Okay, so here's actually I have like a sort of specific method that I think works the best for practicing tech skill, and some people, they have their own methods, but this is personally what I do and I recommend to other people to do, is if you want, what you do is you pick a thing to work on, and literally only do that for 10 minutes. Like, okay. I think basically like an hour of tech skill practice a day in 6 sessions of 10 minutes, and in each session you pick, if you don't feel like doing it for a whole 10 minutes, you can do 5 minutes of one thing and 5 minutes of the other.
Yeah.
But basically the idea is you want to keep it fresh, more so than like, I'm going to move around for an hour.
Yeah.
Because the other problem is that when people just sort of move around, their brain, it's crazy. I've seen it happen like 100 times. Like their brains literally edit out when they miss. Because it's just because you tech practice for so long that like it doesn't, like, let's say you're like, I want to practice ledge dashes, okay? Yeah. And you're practicing, you do ledge dash, and then you jump to platform, and then you dash dance around, you do a short hop nair, and you go back to ledge, you ledge dash again, and you do that for an hour. You don't really know how often you got it or not. You're just sort of like, I put in the time, I'm sure it'll help. But but when you're just focusing on doing one thing specifically for 5 or 10 minutes, and you're able to much more clearly like gauge your consistency of like, I'm gonna do a ledge dash for 10 minutes straight, and then you're like, okay, I missed like half of them. Then a couple hours later, you go and you're like, all right, I'm gonna do more ledge dashes, and you ledge dash for 10 minutes straight. You're like the ability to compare, like, okay, so my later sessions today, I was significantly more, what am I saying? Like more consistent than I was in like my earlier sessions or whatever. And so you can, it's much easier to like gauge your improvement at those things, and it's like way more important than just sort of generally moving around the stage. And if it's not something specific you want to grind, like say you want to grind platform movement, what you should do is you should make up a specific movement, and that you have to do like a sequence. Like this is like if you watch those old like tech skill videos from like Silent Wolf or whatever, what he'll do is he'll have like a 10-second sequence of like, okay, I'm gonna jump up, wave land off, turn around laser, wave dash up tilt or something, and basically just do that sequence over and over, and if you mess it up, you start it again.
Yeah.
Because that will show you when you mess stuff up. Because like people, it's very easy to not realize that you're messing up. It's weird. It might sound weird, but like I've seen it with a lot of people. It's so hard to know when you're really messing up, especially with like stuff like wave dashes, because people will be like, okay, I'm practicing like wave shines, but they're kind of just sort of generally moving around practicing wave shines, and they'll like miss their wave shine and they'll do a full hop. And then they'll go kind of like, oh, I just wanted to wave land off the platform. Like in their head. Like their head is like, oh, then don't worry, bro. You wanted that full hop. And it's like, no, you didn't. So if you tell yourself, okay, I need to wave dash 3 times and then wave shine 3 times. When you mess that up, your brain goes, oh, I messed up.
Yeah. I definitely can feel that happen sometimes, like especially when I'm doing more like general movement.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember you told the guy yesterday to do like edge cancel aerials and like mess with your dash dance lengths and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and I like tried that a little bit yesterday, and like definitely felt like when I messed it up, I was like, oh, let me just practice the shield drop then, and like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's literally our brains are so good at that. I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh, don't worry, man. Like you just full hopped because you wanted to be on the platform. It's not because you messed up your wave dash,
Yeah. One thing that this is sort of leading to, I think, is that like people always talk about having goals in friendlies and stuff like that. Um, and in terms of like implementing, like I guess more thought process and deliberation between my move choice, like how specific should my goals be when I'm playing a friendly? Is it more something like, oh, I like won't drop a chain grab like against this guy, or is it like when I like up throw when he up throw up tilts me or whatever, I will like SDI behind every time or something like that? Like, how do I? Do you think that
Those are actually really good examples of things you should be practicing.
Okay.
Like you pick one or two things like that depending on how often it comes up, because there's some stuff in the game where you're like, okay, I really want to practice I don't even know, like let's say up tilt weak nair, like you jump above them and you drop like a weak nair combo or something, but like that's not gonna come up all that often. So if that's the only thing that you're practicing during a session, then you might not get the most out of your time as you're trying to get.
Yeah.
So it's like, depending on how commonly a thing comes up, that's like you can focus more exclusively on that.
Yeah. So like as I get better and improve, those things will become more and more specific over time.
Not necessarily. What do you mean by that?
So like, right now I might be at the level of like, okay, like I'm going to focus on dash dancing with with more purpose to try to bait out like the move that I know he's going to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Versus then when I'm like better, I'm like, oh, he's mixing me up in like this situation by the ledge with like this DI with like my DI. So in that situation, now that I'm not like losing like the basic neutral because I'm just getting dash attacked when I'm dash dancing or whatever, like I can focus on the more specific scenario of like, oh, he's really beating me by the ledge with a DI mix up or something like that.
Okay, so the thing is that basically no matter what level of you're at, general things and specific things will always need to be worked on.
Okay.
So, like, for instance, like, things that I might work on is I'll say, like, let's say it's, like, Fox Falco. Yeah. And I'll say, like, okay, what I want to do this session is I want to dash back out of lasers more often.
Okay.
Or, okay, but then sometimes it'll be like, okay, if I do an up throw up air and Marth SDIs out, I want to try to move in different ways and see which one is the most successful.
Okay.
So it can range from like kind of general of like I generally want to just try to dash out of laser more, or it can be like, oh, I want to try staying on top platform more, or it can be like extremely specific where like, okay, I wave shine up tilt and they tech towards the ledge. Should I run up double shine or should I run up smash or whatever? And like, so it's less about general versus specific and more about like what you're trying to work on. And it's like it can go either way basically.
I think I DM'd you my practice routine that I've been doing right now. Okay. Or not like right now, but like the past few weeks.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if like just for what you're seeing specifically, like if there would be anything that I could edit or change to this. Like I've been doing this like every day.
Yeah.
And like I seriously am very committed to like trying to get better, and so like any change that you suggest like will be implemented.
Okay. Dude, if you're doing this stuff, that's actually really sick.
Like I literally saw a video of Zane saying that he used to solo practice 3 hours a day, and I'm like, I want to be as good as Zane, and so I started solo practicing 3 hours a day. Like I really have like, this is like the most fun I've had in like any process of improvement ever.
Okay,
like,
that's really sick.
Like, I really like playing Melee. Like,
okay, so if you want to be as good as Zane, here's what you do. First of all, you get good at the process of improving.
Yeah.
Like this thing I'm basically explaining to you. Like
yeah.
It's less about you actually getting this improvement and more about you learning how to add things to your gameplay and improve.
Yeah.
And then being able to consistently get good practice in as well as putting a lot of hours in.
Okay.
So it's basically what Zane actually said recently is he feels he can learn about 2 hours of the day in game.
Okay.
So he's basically doing this process of trying things out and confirming suspicions and maybe adding on little things here or there. I'm going to DI here differently. He says he can get about 2 hours a day of that. And the rest of, 5 to 8 hours extra on top of that is basically just consistency.
Yeah.
Of just, okay, every time this happens, I do this. So the thing is that to get really good, playing that many hours a day won't help unless you get the process down. And also I think that basically you don't really need to practice that much until you're already basically you can only get an hour or two of good practice in a day, and any hours after that are just for fun until you get good enough at the process of improvement to be able to maximize your time.
Yeah.
So
I think, a lot of my days have been my Melee time for the day is just like this solo practice routine, and that's why I feel like I'm sort of lopsided in my punish game. Like I could actually kill Fox a lot, but I think that I'm probably just going to try focusing on playing good people who will have purpose behind their decisions for a while, in addition to this, so I can work on the more, the being more deliberate and neutral.
Well, you don't actually need your opponent to be purposeful for their decisions for you to be purposeful behind your decisions. Because I can actually practice my neutral against unranked Falcos. And I do that. Because because the whole idea is when they're going to do this move, I can do this move. Yeah. And then I work on trying to bait that out or whatever. Or I see when they do it, and then I can practice just responding to it. Yeah. And it might not be quite as useful as I'm doing it against the top-tier player, but against the top-tier player, it's harder to work on. Against someone who's even skill leveled with you, it's a lot harder to work on specifics than against someone who's, worse than you.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, so...
Towards the end...
Huh?
And I just wanted to, sorry for interrupting, but
yeah, no worries.
I wanted to make sure that I had ended this with a path forward, I guess.
Yeah.
And I'm as I said, I'm very committed to doing fiction. If you say that I need to do something, I will spend hours doing it. I promise you that. So any advice that you give is very, very helpful. In terms of how I should proceed further.
Okay. Give me 30 seconds.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so in terms of your solo practice routine, I think overall it's pretty solid, but I think it might be a little lopsided towards more advanced things, and I think that you should focus more on things that are easier. It might seem like it's below you to practice 15 minutes straight of just wave dashing.
Yeah.
But it's actually wave dashing is actually a lot harder than people think. Like being able to do wave dash, being able to wave land really cleanly, being able to you already have ledge dash on here, and that's good. I think like I would not include stuff like drill grab that much yet, or like wave shine combos necessarily quite as much. I think like you'd be better off practicing shield pressure aerials, and practicing like generally like basically it's really tempting to do the things that sound like techniques, like wave shine up tilt, stuff like that, or shine nair, stuff like that. Those are really tempting to work on, but actually like the basic movement of being able to control your dash dance perfectly, control your wave dashes perfectly, control exactly where and when you land with your aerials. I think those are, if you're actually going to be practicing a bunch of tech skill, those will help you out a lot more.
Okay.
Basically being able to position your character exactly where you want and being very consistent with your movement when moving around. That's step one. I think you should focus heavily on movement and like basic aerial spacing and basic aerial hitting shield stuff, much more than stuff like Armada Shine. Like that is not really something you need to worry about too much. They're really fun and it's fine to spend time on it, but in terms of pure effectiveness, it's not quite as much.
Okay.
And maybe stuff like turnaround up tilt, I think that's still pretty good because that's still sort of like basic movement stuff.
Yeah.
So the second thing is whenever I want you to play neutral much more patient and try to specifically bait people. And basically whenever you get a win in neutral, I want it to feel like, oh yeah, like I totally, like there's a specific feeling and it's hard to describe, but all the top players pretty much agree that it's there, where there's like a feeling of like I won the neutral. Like there was no gambling. I moved around. I tricked them into doing something stupid, and then I hit them out of it. Yeah. And I want you to feel that pretty much every time in neutral, and basically like you're gonna get hit out of it a bunch, and that's okay. Don't deviate from it. It'll feel really tempting to be like, man, when I was nairing him, I was hitting him way more than I'm hitting him now. And it's like, right, because like this is your weakness.
Yeah.
And so like it's significantly more important from watching these VODs for you to basically, even if you're dash dancing for like 10 seconds or something, I want you to see if you can bait people and then punish based off of the bait rather than trying to sort of hit them in like a scramble. Like I basically want you to basically like completely not ignore scrambles, but play purely defensively in the scrambles and try to respond purely to what your opponent's doing rather than making them respond to what you're doing. You can do little baits and stuff. You can do like a short hop fade back drill in neutral to see if you can trick him into coming in. But I don't want you to be like naring at him or going for these short hop up airs or trying to make like a grab read where you just run in. Like you can grab him after he's whiffed his grab. That's when I want you going in and grabbing him.
Yeah, okay.
Because this isn't. It's like basically this is the first layer of like being able to play intentionally, is that like you can focus entirely on responding to your opponent and trying to bait them out rather than relying on your intuition. Yeah. So like I don't want to see any like random wave like dash in up smashes or whatever. Like if you do that, it's fine, but I want you to be like bad Tomz, like don't do that, like so the reason I'm telling you to practice your basic movement more of dash dancing spacing and wave dash spacing and wave landing correctly, and also like being able to like dash dance and aim your down air in a very specific spot very precisely, is that if you can't do those things, even if you get this super good bait on someone, what you might do is you might try to punish it and you might miss, and then you end up in a scrap, and then you're scared, and then you're up tilting and you're throwing out all these things, and that's not conducive to the practice you want. So being able to place your character precisely where you want to will make it easier for you to play around with getting those like hard neutral wins of like, I baited you and I got a guaranteed win because you did a bad aerial.
Yeah.
So those are the two things I think you should be focusing on.
So when someone is an incredibly fast player, right? Like let's look at like Plup or whatever, right?
Okay.
That because they've played the slow, very deliberate outplay style enough that they eventually can basically do it much faster and like without as much thought put into it?
Okay, for Plup, he's kind of an interesting case because it depends on which character he's playing.
Yeah.
So
I guess like just like a generic.
Yeah, let's not use Plup. He's a little weird because he mains Samus and he plays Fox like really dishonestly, and his Sheik is kind of weird. He just has like a lot of skill, and I feel like he kind of doesn't really play optimally to his skill a lot of times. Like we all kind of know that Plup could be doing better than he does.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe he's not the best option when somebody's playing
like
really fast.
Top player.
Yes, like let's say IBDW or something like that. It's not that he's necessarily played the slow game so much that he can. It's dependent on how different players' brains work. At some point, someone will have to learn to bait people out, but if you can, like, there's basically different ways to build your style. They all follow the same principles. Some people can play fast, but in their head, like, they look fast, tech skill-wise, but in their head, they're playing slow. Yeah. And so you can't really gauge it based off of how fast it looks like they're moving, because someone might be looking fast while playing patient neutral, like, in their head, basically.
Okay. Yeah. But
it's not really about playing slower as much as it is baiting your opponent out. So I'm not necessarily telling you to play slow, but I'm telling you not to intentionally resolve neutral with like a gamble.
Yeah. So I could still like try to get like the APM like super high. It's just like it has to have like purpose behind it as opposed to like.
Yeah, if you want to dash dance in place at 10 million miles an hour, that is completely fine. You do not have to lower your APM at all.
Okay, that sounds fun, honestly.
It's just important not to think, okay, I have, like, high APM is generally good, but you don't want that high APM to turn into brainless attacking. So if you can sustain, but, like, I mean, look at Absent Page. That guy was playing mad slow in his head, but his Fox looks really fast. Because he's dash dancing super, super fast. You're like, oh, he's so fast! But, like, in reality, he's not making a decision, he's just watching you.
Yeah.
You know? So
I saw him playing Moki, and he just like sat under the platform.
I love the Moki stuff.
Just like short hop drilled at him occasionally, and I was like, "This is very interesting."
So he's playing very slow despite it looking fast. But I think
it's not like high APM is like a means. It's not an end.
Yeah, high APM is like it's relevant, but it doesn't apply to a lot of parts of the game. It's more of like its own separate thing. And it doesn't guarantee results. It's more of like a preference. And some people find that playing high APM gives them better reactions because they're like very in the zone. Like, I'm already pressing buttons, so I CC something and I just hit people out of it. But some people don't need that high APM to be able to react quickly, like Mewtwo King.
Yeah.
And so it's all very like a personal thing, and it doesn't matter as much as like the speed at which you're observing and making decisions. So in terms of decision making, I'm telling you to slow it down because I don't want you making split-second decisions. I want you carefully baiting people. But in terms of APM, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Regrettably, I think that is pretty much our time, but you can get in one more thing.
Yeah, I'm just going to send you what you've been, like, I've been taking a little bit of notes, and I want to just, like, really quick.
Yeah, like, I've been hearing you beat up on that poor keyboard.
I DM'd you it.
Okay, yeah, cool. Yeah, I can respond to this in text in a little bit.
All
But,
right. What's the
yeah.
best way to like pay you?
You can Venmo me, or you can do a donation through Twitch. It's up to you. I prefer Venmo, but it's up to you.
Yeah, I'll Venmo.
I guess. Hey, let me link you to my Venmo really quick.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right.
So focus on those two things. The basic movement tech skill, like if you're going to be practicing, focus on doing the sequences so you know when you mess up, or repeating one action over and over and looking for consistency. And then be sure to play neutral patiently and bait people, and you have to feel the outplay. Those are the two things. If you focus on those, I think you'll find a lot of results.
Yeah, I really appreciate this a lot. I basically think that if I could just like listen to just top players talk about Melee all the time, I would just be forever happy. It's like so interesting.
I gain a lot out of it too. Like when I'm talking with Duck and stuff, I always improve from those. And
It's
Cody.
like, it's just like such a I don't know. I love. First of all, it's always very interesting to hear people talk about things that they're passionate about, but especially when they're super knowledgeable and it's like it's literally like a competition where there's stakes. It's just so interesting.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
All right, well, I'm gonna go. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, sounds good,
yeah.
man. Let me know how things are working out for you. If you have a couple follow-up questions here or there, I don't mind answering them. But have a good day.
Yeah, you too.
See you in
See ya.
Twitch chat. All right.